Hi, everyone. Welcome to Stream and Hub Radio. I am your host, Sage Stevens of Shout Out with Sage. My guest today is a very extremely funny, hilarious lady. I've watched her in action in both Spanish and English. She has 3 Showtime specials and a hysterical appearance on the HBO Max Ha Festival, which is now streaming. In the TV world, she wrote and appeared with the likes of Barry Diller, NBC Universal, and Dick Wolf Productions. And today, I want to welcome to the show Monique Marvez. Hey, Monique, how are you?
Never better, Sage. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming. So you did a 1-hour comedy special on your own
I did.
called Not Skinny, Not Blonde. How did you end up producing that, and what were some of the obstacles you had to overcome?
Well, I actually didn't put up the money. I'm very
Okay.
grateful to say that Scott Montoya, who produced Snoop Dogg Presents the Bad Girls of Comedy and Latin Divas of Comedy, really believed in me. And he produced it, and he already had a track record with
Okay.
Showtime. So the only obstacle I had was that he said, I'll shoot a 1 hour, but you can't have any overlap from Snoop Dogg, which was a 15-minute set, or Latin Divas, which was a 30-minute set. And I want you to write 70 new minutes, so I have a lot to work with to cut it down to 58 or 60. So I had the challenge was to write 70 minutes of bulletproof material in one summer.
And how did you go about doing that?
How did I do that?
Yes.
Well, a friend of mine, as it happened, was producing a series of shows at the Arizona Biltmore, which is kind of a legendary hotel.
Yeah, I've actually stayed there just a few months ago, so it's beautiful. Yes.
It is amazing. And they were looking for talent to carry them through the summer because it's very hot in Arizona. So they decided to do a Johnny Carson style variety show in their very iconic show. So
Wait, sorry, you just
actually, I
out a
lost
bit.
you too for a second.
Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so let's just sort of re-step. So you
No
were at
worries.
the Arizona Biltmore
Doing a
and
Johnny Carson
right.
like show every weekend. So Thursday, Friday, early show Saturday, I would be at the Tempe Improv just hammering out 6 weeks
Right.
in Arizona, just working, writing all day, performing 5-6 shows a weekend, and then doing the Johnny Carson style show that I was actually being paid for. Everything else was just free in practice.
So how do you come about getting your materials? Is it autobiographical, your own experiences?
No. I'm going to teach everyone how to be a comic by watching your show. This is what you do. You write a line across a wall with maybe a Sharpie.
Okay.
And anything that moves you way above the line or way below the line, write a notation, a phrase that reminds you, whether it's dog died for way below or, met a new guy for way above. And everything in between those 2 points, ignore. And because they're not, the middle is death.
Right.
It's extreme emotion that creates passion in the storytelling. So, once you have your lows and your highs, then you decide how to tell the story. I tell people, I just tell the truth and wrap it in bacon. I don't write joke. When you write truth, then it's extremely relatable because that's where people live. So other people have other techniques,
Right.
but this is what I do. Be powerful and relatable.
Sorry. So you just, again, we blipped out a little bit.
I know, I lost you too.
Yeah. So you are powerful and relatable. Did I miss anything else there?
No, you didn't miss a word.
Okay, great. That's really interesting. Yeah, everyone does have their own approach to writing or creating something, but I totally agree with you. It's the highs and the lows, basically.
Where the stories live.
Sorry, I missed you.
That's where the stories lived. It's so peculiar too, because we're having these challenges But interestingly enough, you blip out too. So I'm not
Right.
quite sure what's going on, but
Right.
we're going to work through it because I did radio for years. And even when you're in a studio, you just,
Yeah.
this new world we live in is very peculiar to me, but I'm learning to navigate it.
Right. Well, when you're live, you just have to keep going. And, I did theater as well. So you just
You
keep the
know the
show.
drill.
Yeah. Keep
Well, that's
going.
because stand up, I mean, it doesn't get more live. You're not only live, you're out on a tightrope. So I've had bar fights break out in the middle of my set, like literally like table turning, chair throwing bar fights in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, while I was on stage.
And what did you do? You just kept cracking jokes?
Well, I did crack some jokes, but the owner blocked the door because she was afraid people were going to run out on their checks. So the owner, who was a crazy woman named Shirley, blocked the door and just kept yelling from the back of the room, "Keep talking." And at some point, the fight died down. The offenders were dragged out.
Right.
Check.
Sorry. Okay. The offenders were dragged out, and then what happened?
Everyone paid their checks, and a good time was recovered.
How did you end up in comedy?
I could tell you a million stories, but it happened in one day. I was laying in bed with a very high fever, reading the Miami Herald, and on the People's page, which was the first page inside, of like the personalities and celebrities, they had a picture of Sam Kinison coming out of the Miami arena with two giant blondes on each arm. And I said, if that big, ugly, fat,
so and so, right,
getting rich and getting chicks, I need to try comedy.
So that was it, because you're like, if he can have all that, so I might as well try it.
Yeah. So, the truth is, I never thought I was funny. I still don't think I'm funny. But the funny part is, even from a child, I would say what everyone was thinking and wouldn't say out loud. So even now, I'll say something in conversation and people will fall out and they'll be like, "Is that in your act?" And I'm like, "No, I just said it to you." And they'll be like, "Oh my God, that has to be in your act. That's hilarious." And I'm never trying to be funny. I'm just telling an unabashed, unfiltered truth about what's going on.
Right. Yes. Most people, they have their filters on, and they're always, a lot of people are afraid to say what they're really thinking. So
I have hardly any makeup on now because it's moving day for my mother. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, I've got filthy hair, almost no makeup. I don't care if people like me. Like, I'm not like other people. And I know that now. As a kid, people kept saying, "You're not right." And I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't care. Now I know what it means, and I still don't care. But I'm definitely, I don't have that thing. I'm missing it. I tell people I'm like IKEA furniture. There's parts that didn't go in. Like, they're sitting on the instructions.
Right.
I genuinely do not care what other people think of me. And I think that's rare. And for a woman, it's super rare.
Right. Definitely. I definitely would agree with you on that. What would your biggest tip be to someone who's trying to get into comedy, who's just starting out?
Grow a very thick skin, because comedy is completely subjective. And unlike acting, where you're saying someone else's words, as a comedian, you're the product. You're it. If they don't like your act, in essence, it's going to feel like they don't like you. And so don't even try it if you're, tenderhearted or easily offended. You won't make it.
How is it working with the other comedians? Like, do they ridicule? Are some supportive? How is that?
Almost from day one, when they recognize, because people are pack animals. They're mammals. They're pack animals. When they realize, I mean, look, I'm going to take you back to high school.
Right.
I was that chick that people gathered around. I was a little bit like Wednesday. Like, I was very weird, and people gathered around me to see what I was going to do. And they, so I'm very accustomed to being in it, but not of it, like the Bible says. So I really I'm just an older iteration of myself, because comedy didn't change me. It just augmented who I was. It kind of allowed me, it's a Trojan horse. It's the place I could hide in plain sight. But I've always been that person that people kind of watch, like, what's she gonna do? Because I have that machinery that makes me do that thing that other people want to do but won't allow themselves.
Right. You have 3 Showtime specials, is that correct?
4. I have 4.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I
don't think I hold a record, but I got a lot.
Okay. How did those opportunities arise for you?
Every single thing in my comedy career has been word of mouth. It's never been, I've never had a proper agent or manager, just a lawyer. But one of the things I'm the proudest of, to circle back to what you asked me before, I'm kind of a comics comic. I'm very respected within the industry. And even though I'm not a household word or a celebrity by any means, last night I was at the place where you met me at Yamashiro. Right. Yes. I was very warmly greeted by the guy who runs the room. And I went because I knew Tiffany Haddish was going to be there, and we shot Snoop Dogg together. So she couldn't see me from the stage, and I was wearing a little hat because, again, my roots are out of control, and my hair's filthy. I'm getting it done tomorrow, but it's moving day. And she said something, and I applauded, and I guess she thought it was like a sarcastic applause.
Right.
So she came at me like I was a hater. She's like, "What have you done? And who are you?" And I said, "Hey, it's Monique Marvez. I was just here to support,
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, Momo, you look she's like, "You look so young in that hat. And I thought you were some young little hater." And I was like, "No, I'm your friend. I went and saw Haunted Mansion on opening night." And you could see like she gave me a lot of love from the stage to where people were looking around the room like, "Who's this person?"
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah, she's like white hot famous right now. It's crazy.
Definitely. It was great to see, how she, catapulted to the top. Why do you think some people have a harder time being themselves on stage? Like, do you get stage fright? Like, how do you overcome that?
I'm way better on stage than off stage. Like when I'm on dates, guys are like, "Oh my God, it must be so hard to be a comedian." I'm like, "Whoa, it's way worse sitting here with you." But I have to tell them, like, I don't mean that you're not wonderful. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's how I am all the time. But I'm like, one-on-one is way more awkward for me than just doing what I do. Like being a comedian is like a bird flying. It's like the most how thing I do in my life.
Okay. Sorry, you're cracking me up. How do you...
What I do, Sage.
Yeah, I know. Go figure. How do you decide, like, okay, wait.
I got you. Okay. We're good.
Okay. How do you decide what project to say yes to or no to? How do you decide to move forward?
I say no to everything. And then I let the person advocate and tell me why, because everybody just assumes that everybody's looking for work and money. And the truth is I'm not, never was. I'm looking for purpose. I'm looking for destiny. I'm looking for a relationship, meaning, to interact with somebody on a personal level. So all the things that other people chase and want, I don't care. So, which again is challenging to people because they can't kind of get their hooks into me. But what I tell people, and it's funny because now when I talk about it, the kids get it. The kids are going to save us, Sage. The kids are going to save us.
Okay,
so
good to know.
They are. So when they say to me, when people talk about cancel culture, I'm like, you have to understand, cancel culture is about the man. It means that you have corporate sponsors and people you answer to, and a subtle censorship that you've agreed to live a certain kind of life. And number one, if you're a good person like me, you understand that it's not about the words. Everybody knows that when a Southerner says, "Bless his little heart," that's Southern that's what happens when you let minorities make their own decisions. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about the words, it's about intention.
The subtext. I mean, especially as writers, I mean, I'm a writer, actor. You're like, it's all, what they say, it's all the white stuff. It's not the actual words. It's all the white stuff that's surrounding it.
Right. So since I am a very well-intentioned person and I know who I am, I say whatever I want on stage, and the kids totally get it. And when I tell them I'm not worried about getting canceled because, like, oh, more credit card debt for Monique. You know what I mean? Like, the man didn't make me, so the man can't break me.
Okay. So you're not worried about cancel culture?
Not at all. Because you know what? People know what's in your heart. The problem is the people that are canceled are more than likely not very pure hearted. They just walk the walk because they like the money.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Dave Chappelle. Everybody says Dave Chappelle's anti-Semitic. Maybe, but here's the truth. He doesn't like white people, and Jews happen to be white. Like, what part of Dave's 30-year career did you miss? I love Dave Chappelle, and I don't think he's done anything out of the norm. He's Dave.
Right. Well, it's any comedy is, it's that, as you said before, it's that person, and not everyone might like me, or not that I do comedy, but not everyone likes a certain comedian. So they might like you, they might not like Dave, they might like Dave, they might not like you. So it's
totally
their own
subjective.
Yeah,
it's totally subjective. And cancellation, just like I said before, it has to do with a subtle agreement to stay within certain guidelines because the man is giving you money. That's what it is. Whether people don't want to admit that definition because that call to play.
Sorry, you broke up again.
I got you. I'm going to repeat myself.
Okay.
What I just said is counterintuitive, because what happens is it calls the credibility of the content. You know, how authentic is the person? You know, if a person's a hateful person, sometimes that can be very funny. It has been in the past.
Right.
And comedy is comedy. Like, if they're a hateful person and it happens to be funny, who cares? But now you don't get that. You don't get to do that, or they take your house away.
Right. Do you think it's important for comedians to have a little more leeway in what they say?
I think it's so important for humans. Comedians just happen to have a particular job. Right. But I think we have lost our ability to gauge the importance of things. When I was a little girl, my dad used to tell me, Monique, if everything is special, nothing is special. So if every single thing offends you and makes you crazy, then nothing is, it doesn't rise to the material. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, if you're easily offended,
if you're mad all the time, then when somebody says something really awful, you know, they evoke the name of Hitler or something. Well, you've already gotten angry over somebody having beef with Taylor Swift. You know what I mean? You kind of blew it.
Definitely. I understand what you're saying. Is there any advice you would give someone who's like wanting to make the big move to Los Angeles?
Don't do it until you're good at what you do. This is not where you come to work out material.
Okay.
This is not where you come to workshop. You can't make a first impression. I didn't move here till I was already a headliner. And to be honest, it was pretty early in my career. Just because I had 45 minutes of material doesn't mean I was the bomb. So I stayed on the road. I lived here, but I still work my craft on the road. I don't try out new material in LA clubs.
Okay. Why is that? Just in case
you can't make a first impression. If there's industry in the audience and you bomb, unless you're Richard Pryor or Tiffany Haddish, they're just going to say, oh, very good.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Absolutely. I said, if there's industry in the audience and your new bit doesn't go, they're not the people that are going to extrapolate. You know, they're going to say, oh, I saw her once. She wasn't very good.
Right. Next. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of sage advice you've been given in your career so far?
It was by a lunatic comedian who would be canceled 100 ways from Sunday if he were around, named Darwin Hines. And he said, keep doing what you're doing. I was an open micer. And I didn't do anything contrived because I didn't know I shouldn't. And I didn't hang out with other comics. So the bones of what you saw at Yamashiro's is what he saw. Like, first of all, I like to dress up for my audience. I don't perform in jeans. I wear a nice dress and
Yeah,
makeup.
you look beautiful. You look, yeah.
Unlike now, I looked very nice. But I told them, I said, this isn't for the audience. This is me. You know, I'm a 20-something-year-old Latina woman. We wear a prom dress to pay our light bill. You know what I mean? That's what we do. And I remember him just telling me, because this was the days of Paula Poundstone. You know, I was an open micer. I've been doing this 30 years. So this was Elaine Boozler, Paula Poundstone, the very androgynous kind of want to be one of the guys women.
Okay.
And I'm here in a form-fitting, sexy evening gown with makeup on, you know, and he just said, you have a strong voice. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't let other people talk you out of your style. You already have more than most people have in 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was wonderful.
Right. It's always, sometimes you need those great words spoken to you to make sure you're going off in the right direction.
And by the way, he was hilarious. He was the headliner one week in a comedy club in Florida when I was starting out. To this day, the thought of his act makes me laugh out loud.
So you are from Florida?
Miami.
Okay, I lived in
jokingly
Miami
say
before.
The capital of Cuba. And don't let my super pale face fool you. I'm a vampire. I'm 100% Latina. I just never go in the sun.
That's okay. That's all good. How did you make the transition from Miami to LA? Like, you said you toured and stuff. Did you always want to come to LA, or you slowly worked your way there?
I slowly worked my way. I actually gave up my home in March of 93, and I was homeless for 28 months. I didn't rent an apartment in LA till July of 96. So I basically couch surfed for 28 months and friends.
Sorry, so you couch surf for 28 months?
28 months, because back in the day, you could rent a phone number in LA for like $13 a month. It would sound like you had an LA phone number. It was private phone banks. And you could rent a mailbox at a mailbox place, not a post office, that looked like you had an apartment. So I rented a mailbox and I rented a phone number. People thought I lived in LA, but I couch surfed. I was homeless for 28 months.
Okay. And then you finally, created a more stable an apartment and all that. And then you just kept going.
1343 Martel. I've lived within 2 miles of where I live right now, on and off since 1996.
Cool. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to today? Anyone that's really helped you, maybe slapped you, pushed you, like definitely helped you in your career?
I'm going to tell you a story. Her name is Beth Needham now. That wasn't her name then, or Weedham. Anyway, a comedian named Beth. I drove to Dallas in 1994, maybe 95, but it was a long time, as you can tell. And she was a very big deal at that time. She was doing these special shows called like Ladies Night Out. It was like a theme show, and she'd go in on a Thursday night into a club and sell it out and just pack it to the walls. And, Beth was a great person. And I'm pretty sure it's Weedham, because I remember thinking how appropriate. But anyway, I drove 700 miles out of my way to do a guest set in front of this very important booker who I wanted to book me, named Randy, who did book me years later. And when I got there, he said, "You're too late. The MC's already on stage. You can't do a set." 700 miles.
Yeah,
So I started to cry. And Beth was in the back of the room. She said, "Why are you crying?" And I told her the story. And she said, "F that." And she went up on stage and she said, "I'm going to rock this club. But before that, a little friend of mine who she'd never met before, a friend of mine stopped by to." And it's funny, I can't remember her name, but his name was Randy Butler. And she called me up and she said, you know, my friend Monique Marvez. And I did 15 minutes, and I was so full of adrenaline, and I was already a pretty good comic. I demolished the room, demolished. And she went up after me and she said, oh, that little biatch was going to make me work that hard. I would have never let her come up.
She wouldn't have let you go on first because you were going to be that good, right?
Yeah,
she has to follow. Shoot. Hi, everyone. I guess we're having some technical difficulties. Hopefully Monique can come back. Not sure. But she has some great stories, and we will have this episode on our YouTube channel later if you want to go back, anyone coming in a little late to watch it again. Yeah, I think I may have lost her. We didn't have the greatest connection to begin with, but hey, it's a live show. Technical difficulties never fail to happen. So I think I'll give her another couple seconds before I maybe just call it an interview. And again, if you came in later, you can watch the full episode on YouTube. And I think I'm going to call it a day. So, maybe Yay! Not. I almost was going to call it.
I literally just moved. I just literally picked up the phone and moved it. So,
okay.
So here's the upshot is she was so delightful. And I will leave you with this, Sage.
Okay.
And you can close whenever you want, but here's the upshot. I'm holding it in my hand. I don't care. It's balanced on my elbow. So That's
fine. Okay. I've had other people move all around. I'm like, oh my God, please just make it a little stationary. I'm getting dizzy.
No worries. But here's the upshot. I have a list of people, including Beth, who I can look up on Facebook and get her name, that went out of their way. And rather than people that think about getting even, I look forward to the day when I can bless them and just either send them an anonymous, gift card and bouquet of flowers and just say, you did something nice for me 30 years ago. That's how I roll. I look forward to the day that I can bless people either knowingly or anonymously because I've lived an unbelievable career.
Sorry, you've lived an unbelievable, sorry.
I was just I stopped when I saw the glitch. Yeah. My comedy career has been, as I like to say, a series of fortuitous and fabulous flukes. And I'm so grateful for every one of them.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Do you have any, where can we follow you? When are you performing next?
My name, Monique Marvez on all social media, at Monique, Monique, Marvez, Marvez.
Great. And when are you performing next? Is there anywhere we can
I tour everywhere. I'm at the Comedy Cellar, this Friday, 4 shows at the Cellar.
Okay.
Then I'm in Garland, Texas at the Civic Center in Garland, Texas. I have a smattering of things in Boca Raton, like small theaters. I just go to my social media or my website. I'm kind of everywhere.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks all of you for joining us as well. And I'll see you next Wednesday at 4 on Shout Out with Sage. Bye, everyone.
Yay.
Thank you. We made it through.
Sage.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.